The S4 tune is now complete. We've been working on tuning this car pretty much as long as I've owned it, and in the process of tuning the car, we found out many things we had to upgrade and fix along the way. This car's been tuned on 3 different octanes remotely by a company called Motoza. Now that this process is complete, I wanted to talk about the whole thing. I'm going to give my impressions on remote tuning this car with Motoza, as well as an impression on each of the individual fuel maps that we got from them. To understand what kind of an improvement these tunes make, we need to talk about where the car was when I bought it. The car wasn't even drivable when I bought it, but once it was drivable, there were a lot of things that needed fixing, and that's kind of an understatement. We fix about 90% of these issues as we go through the tuning process. This is what a second gear pull looked like when I got the car. For now, let's talk about the kit that I ordered. Motoza tuned my TT, which is why I went with them for my S4. I like the company, and they seem like really genuine people. I chose their E85 Stage 1 Plus kit, which has fuel maps for a few different octanes depending on what you want to run. It comes with their dongle that attaches to your laptop, as well as some 550cc injectors that you're going to need to run E85. Now, I don't know if you technically need 550cc's to max out the KO3s, however, when we do go to KO4s in the future, it'll be nice to already have them in place. Generally, before you tune a car, you're going to want to make sure the engine is running as good as it possibly can. Despite the Christmas tree of lights on the dash, the engine actually drove quite smoothly, which is why I started with the tune. Working with the tuner to find vacuum leaks and other issues with the car is a great way to find any problems that you couldn't exactly see just by looking at it. We started with the 91 octane tune, which is going to be the lowest boost and lowest power option out of the set. Figured this was a good baseline to find issues in the car and make sure that it was bulletproof before we went on to 93. The process of loading the tune onto the car is extremely simple. The only thing you're going to want to make sure you have is a battery tender. To show a proper comparison, here is what the Stage 1 tune looked like without fixing any of those issues. This really woke the car up, and it was a lot faster than stock. However, it pointed out a lot of issues we needed to fix. The 91 tune is roughly supposed to hit around 18 psi, which we weren't exactly doing. The car ran great at full throttle, but we were dealing with some overboost and misfires at partial throttle. This was kind of what I wanted though. I wanted to see what the weak parts in the system were so I could work on replacing them before we upload the next iteration of the tune. Remote tuning with Motoza follows these general steps. The first thing you do is send them a list of the mods you have on your car so they can adjust their tune for it. In my case, full bolt-on with stock intercoolers. They're going to send you a base map which you upload to the car, and then you need to go drive it around and get logs with your computer. The goal with the logs is to capture all ranges of how you're going to use the vehicle, so you do some drivability with some general driving as well as some polls. Then they look at the data, send you a revised map which you upload to your car, and start the whole logging process again. Along the way, you're going to find issues which you're going to correct, and then eventually you're going to have a really great tune for each octane. Once we got the first log back, we found out that the car had quite a few issues which we needed to address. At this point, there was quite a few things wrong with the car, and I didn't have a list of all the maintenance the previous owner had done, so I figured it was a good idea to do a general tune-up of all the issues that are common on these cars. I upgraded the coils, plugs, and all of the vacuum hoses. I also replaced my ABS unit and my O2 sensors, which removed almost all of the lights on my dash. In other words, the car was better than ever, and we were ready to start tuning on 93. This makes a little more boost than 91 and has some more aggressive timing, so it makes quite a bit more power. I don't have a dyno, but I can attest that it makes the car feel quite good. You'll also be able to hear just how much smoother the boost comes on based on all the fixes we did to the engine. Tuning on 91 and 93 went so well that it's not even a question if it was worth doing. I was thinking E85 would be just as simple. However, life threw a wrench in my plans. And it didn't even have to do with the tune itself. We emptied the tank, threw E85 in, and switched maps to the correct one. Believe it or not, the car started right up, and driving home, I was blown away by how smooth everything was. I had never ran E85 in a car before, so I was initially surprised by how easy it actually was and how well the car took to it. For the afternoon. Ironically, later that day, right before I did my first log, the car was sideswiped. This put a pretty major pause on my tuning progress with the car. The other party was completely at fault since they pulled out, and I dropped the car off for them to repair. This means I was out of the S4 for around a month before I got it back. And once I did get the car back, one side looked way nicer than the rest of the car, so my decision was to wrap the entire vehicle. Which is why it looked a little different in the intro. Roughly a month and a half later, we were at the same gas station putting E85 in the car yet again, and I couldn't even begin to describe how nervous I was driving home. History has a tendency to repeat itself, and my life is pretty ironic, so I was a bit terrified. The process of swapping tunes with Motoza is pretty simple. You do need your laptop, however, is the only downside. But when you have it and you've done it before, it takes about 30 seconds. We did the first log on the way home, and the tuner said that the engine is looking very healthy. The first thing you'll notice is just how much more torque E85 makes than the standard 93 tune. The power band feels almost the exact same, however, you're adding about 80 foot-pounds of torque just by switching octanes. At least that's what my butt dyno and the numbers on their website say. The tuner sent me a final revision of the E85 map and requested a longer than normal log. This worked out great from a timing aspect because it was actually the last weekend of nice weather before winter, so I went for a long, fun drive.
Oh my god. What is he doing? Oh my god. Whose dog? Come on, dude.
The car is a complete riot on E85. Although at the same time, it is weirdly refined. Unless you're flooring it or really demanding power, this car is honestly a better daily driver than the TT, which is really weird. This car makes so much torque below 2500 RPMs that you really don't have to get above that for any sort of daily driving. The only thing stopping this car on E85 from being a truly wonderful daily driver is gas mileage. E85 requires a lot more fuel be put into the combustion chamber to make power. It burns a lot cooler and you get a lot more torque, however the downside is because of that added fuel, This car uses a lot more gas, and you're going to need to fill up a lot more than you generally would have to. Performance-wise, this is the best octane out of all three without question. The engine runs the smoothest, it makes the most torque, and it's honestly the most fun. However, it is really held back by the fact that your range is nearly cut in half. I fill up all my cars at about a quarter of a tank, and with E85, it's about 50 to 80 miles less of range on this car. And that's pretty substantial when you consider that E85 is actually more than normal gasoline where I live. But boy is it fun. I do think it is very worth noting that I did not buy this car for gas mileage, so I really don't care that much that E85 has worse gas mileage. I did want to bring that up to you guys on the off chance that it is something that really matters to you when you're considering what tune to go with. If you want the best performance and the best bang for your buck out of their tuning options, I think their E85 tune is worthwhile 100% of the time. E85 definitely has some quirks, but this car takes to it really well. It makes a ton of usable power and the torque is a blast. 93 and 91 are definitely no slouch though. The only thing you're really losing with those is a little bit of horsepower and the torque from switching to E85. In my opinion, those two are definitely the most drivable tunes. The combination of not having to fill up every other day, as well as having as much power as you realistically need for public roads, is a great balance. Plus, their Stage 1 Plus tune is really affordable. Another thing you're going to want to acknowledge when tuning your S4 is that you're likely going to put added stress on your KO3s. Though, in my opinion, if you bought a B5 S4 with KO3s, you definitely knew going in that you're going to have to replace those turbos eventually. In pure theory though, if you wanted the benefits of a tune while putting the least amount of stress on your turbos as possible, go with the E85. That fuel can be tuned to make the same power as a 93 tune with much less boost, and it burns a ton cooler. That's just what the science would tell you though. I don't really know what that's going to be like long term for your KO3s. So at the end of the day, do I recommend that you remote tune your B5 S4? Absolutely. Every remote tune is going to be different because every car is different, which is why I recommend you get a custom tune rather than an off-the-shelf tune whenever you have any sort of additional mods on your car. That's just my personal preference. Plus, once you have a custom tune like this, you can always update it if you throw on any other mods for a much cheaper price. When we upgrade turbos in the future, we really just have to buy an additional upgraded tune, which is a lot less than buying a standalone tune for KO4s, or whatever turbos we end up going with. Plus, in the future, if your car ever has any issues, you can simply buy additional logs for the tune you have. They can look at everything your car is doing while you're driving it and point you in the right direction. That's probably the most underrated feature in my opinion of going with this tune. I've had great experiences with Motoza, but I've heard there's also other good remote tuning companies such as German Elite Tuning. I've heard nothing but good things about them as well. At the end of the day, I basically just suggest you go custom versus off the shelf. There are still quite a few things I want to do to the S4, but checking tuning off the list is a really good thing. Getting the okay from my tuner that the engine is looking perfect and running well is all I need to know that I can trust this car and drive it a little bit more than I have been. That's going to give us a lot of freedom when it comes to doing more major upgrades to the TT this upcoming winter. As far as mods for the S4 goes, we're going to turn our sights to the suspension. My next major goal for this car is to level up this car's handling and make it actually corner like I think it should. Stock suspension isn't bad, it's just old and could use an update. Plus, the car's gonna look a lot better lowered and on some nicer wheels. I want to say thank you so much for watching today's episode. It means a lot to me that you would take time out of your day to watch my content. If you enjoyed the video, learned something, or want to see more, consider dropping a like and subscribing. It's the best way you can support me and my content. I will see you guys in the next episode. Once again, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.